Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church on Zoom. My name is Eunice Ayton, and I'm your worship associate today. I am joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, in welcoming you this morning. Beth Severson, our director of music ministries, is off this morning, but she will be present in some of the recordings. We are honored to have music gifted by Grace Baptist Church Cathedral Choir, First Unitarian Brooklyn Choir, our own Linda Kramer, and a quartet from our Orange Coast Choir. Reverend Judy, our Director of Religious Education, already held classes for the children earlier this morning, and she will offer one for our youth after the service. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on Ahajiman and Dongvalen. I would like to invite you to open the chat box and say hello this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is simply a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. After the service, we will be placing everyone who remains into Zoom breakout rooms for 20 minutes of social time. Everyone is welcome to join in, and it's a great way to get to know people in the congregation. Our worship begins with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, and as we light it, we say our unison affirmation. If you have a chalice or candle at home, we invite you to light it with us. Please join me now as we begin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together. Please join us in singing the opening song, Answering the Call of Love.
Faith, hope, and love abide, and through every Happy Valentine's Day, my beloveds. And as Ken reminded me this morning, just 2 days ago, we also are celebrating the Lunar New Year that's celebrated throughout the world as well. So this is what we call Side with Love Sunday, where we talk about ways we are building the beloved community. And today in particular, I wanted to talk about representation in media and in our leaders. And I was struck by this video I saw that came out just after the recent inauguration. And I think it illustrates the importance of representation really well.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Oh, boy.
So for those of you in the probably small minority who haven't heard of the most popular streaming show of all time, The Bridgertons, let me just explain that it's a Netflix show that is based on a series of books by a woman named Julia Quinn that are known as, it's a series of books, but it's in a genre called Regency romances. And that is that they're set in the 19th century, in the early 19th century Regency period, not unlike Jane Austen's novels. Now, the Bridgerton series was, back when it was written a long time ago, was highly popular when they came out. I loved them. And Shonda Rhimes, the famous Hollywood producer, decided to adapt them for the screen, but did so with a completely diverse and inclusive cast. So our reading today is by Vanessa Riley, who is one of the few, if the only one that I know of Black authors of Regency novels. And so this is what she wrote in her response to The Duke and I, which is the first book of the Bridgerton series. She wrote this: "When I heard that Shonda Rhimes and Netflix would be producing Bridgerton, I was nervous and excited. This Julia Quinn novel is my favorite of her books and introduces the Viscountess the Viscountess Violet Bridgerton and her 8 children. Like Quinn's other romances, it's witty and lush, endearing the reader to this close-knit, imperfect family. At its core, this book is a story of overcoming the shadows of the past, learning how to love oneself and how to be truly selfless. These themes are timeless, but would the rest of the story be embraced by today's binging audience? And I had my doubts." She continues, "Personally, reading The Duke and I put me into the fantasy of a Regency world where dukes are young and plentiful. But there's a double-edged sword when we rely on pop culture for history. The fallacy codified by all-white versions of period pieces makes people believe in a world in which people of color did not exist. As much as I love the BBC's 1995 miniseries adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, every episode misses the 20,000 free Blacks living in London who would have worked in the houses, run the shops and the markets, or just milled about the streets watching Darcy's search for Wickham. The Duke and I, like most historical romances, does not invite me, a Black reader, to the balls. I can still enjoy the romance, root for the protagonist, celebrate the courtships, yet when I close my eyes, I don't see my dark hands clutching the carriage seat or holding a goblet in the company of the gentry." When Shonda announced the Bridgerton casting, I think I did a cartwheel. I was giddy. A Black Duke, the bold and bright costumes, a Black Queen, the bubbly Bridgerton siblings, and more Black people and people of color. With over 63 million viewers in 1 week, the Bridgerton Brigade grew. The staging and the careful choreography of the scenes with fireworks and synchronized dance enhanced the storytelling. The costumes deepened the characterizations. The response to the show exists because this televised world possesses romantic and racy plots that don't focus on race. In Netflix Bridgerton, people are snubbed because of their lack of status, not their skin color. Anthony Bridgerton can't be with opera singer Sienna, the woman he craves, because of her social standing. Lord Burbrook wants Daphne Bridgerton only to marry up. Race is celebrated. Regé-Jean Page, Adjoa Andoh, and Golda Rosheuel play Black characters, not amorphous shapeshifters with tans. Bridgerton entwines culture into the story, but without the burden of the colonial past. With everything from the solidarity dap, the arm tap between Hastings and Mondrick, and a jeweled Afro pick comb, Black is on the screen. It's bright and happy and shiny in a post-racial afterglow. The Duke, the Lady, and the baby-faced Queen, these characters' struggles are not framed by slavery or prejudice. Viewers of color can feel safe watching the story without waiting for that moment when our breath is punched from our lungs because of an epithet, an othering action, or a plot point constructed on historical pain. pain that still runs deep. If Bridgerton had been cast exactly like the book, I would have watched and enjoyed it. Many others would too. But would the series have attained such a cult-like status? Probably not. What Shonda Rhimes has achieved is a testament to Bridgerton being not just exceptional, but inclusive too. Now, whether or not you're a fan of the Bridgerton series, I invite you, that spirit of meditation, to just take a moment to kind of think about all of this. And maybe think about a favorite television show that you grew up with. Like I'm thinking I grew up with like Gilligan's Island when I was really young, or the Brady Bunch for some people, or Friends. And ask yourself, how might it have changed the way you see the world if it had had more inclusivity in it? Whether that was race or gender or orientation. Take a moment to think about that. Favorite show. As you contemplate this, you're invited to join the First Unitarian Brooklyn Choir in singing.
We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing, till
Okay, so I gotta tell you, when I saw the Bridgerton series, I was so excited. I was just overjoyed because, like Vanessa Riley in our reading, I loved the Bridgerton series when it first was published over 20 years ago. And I was excited to see it produced. And when I heard about the diverse cast, I was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. It met every expectation and more. It's a fabulous series, in my opinion. Now, I've been kind of asking myself, like, why am I so taken with this? Why do I love this series so much? I mean, yes, okay, it's well acted and there's good chemistry and the scenes are beautifully done. The music, the costumes are like this visual feast for the eyes. And I'm not alone in loving this show. 63 million people in just the first week alone. It is now the single most binged watched show on Netflix. And I love social phenomena, right? I love it when something like this happens because it often will teach us something as a culture and as a society about ourselves that maybe we're not always aware. So I really got thinking about it. What are the reasons why I, as a white, hetero, progressive woman, loved this show? Well, the most obvious one is just the diversity in it. Bridgerton shows us a world where racism and that colonial past basically just didn't happen. There's an absence of that burden of the history and how it informs our interaction and portrayals of both people of color and of white people. What Bridgerton does is it normalizes diversity and inclusion. There's no explanation, it just is. The Duke's Black, the Queen's Black, there are Asian and East Indian people of characters, people of mixed races are all around. And okay, there's only a couple of gay characters and no transgender or differently able people, and there's definitely some misogyny. I mean, it's, 19th century England, there's classism. But when it comes to race, diversity and inclusion is there in all its beauty and glory. So diversity is the first reason. The second reason I loved is because it's something similar to what Vanessa Riley wrote about. She said, viewers of color can feel safe watching the story without waiting for that moment when our breath is punched from our lungs because of an epithet, an othering action, or a plot point constructed on historical pain. Boy, if it feels like a relief to me to not have to deal with that, with historical racism and colonialism, imagine the relief it feels to a person of color. It does feel like a relief, like, oh, yes, here it is, just all wonderfully celebrated. Because, our country right now is going through this cultural revolution, trying really hard to upend a white supremacy culture. And it's hard. It's hard to be what feels like constantly reminded of this racist culture and to deal with our own privilege or other people's privilege, or as she says, waiting for that epithet, othering, or plot point that talks about historical pain. It was a relief for everyone for just 8 hours, to enjoy inclusivity, diversity without feelings of guilt, without being harmed, without wincing at microaggressions, and instead Blackness and color is there in all its beauty. And of course, when the binge watching ends, we remember that the show is fiction and then we're back to our regularly scheduled programming of dismantling white supremacy. But something else also, this is the third point, something from that show lingers on. Because of its popularity, the most watched show ever, this will change the way Hollywood does business. We've already seen some diverse casting with the life of David Copperfield was diverse, and with Broadway's Hamilton, right? And like Bridgerton, these performances reveal that inclusive casting is wanted, desired, and needed. Because this is how we build the world we want. We need new stories. We need to tell them in different ways, because stories are representations of the world, and they open up new possibilities and ways of seeing that world. Bridgerton gives us a vision of what we could be, misogyny and classism notwithstanding. I think, though, that's why it's so popular, and not just the racy sex scenes, which I do warn you, there are racy sex scenes. Actually, I think very well done. But it gives us a glimpse of the world we're trying to build. Now, some people, very picky people, say, well, it's not historically accurate. It's made up. Why are we changing history? Well, okay, first of all, we're not changing history. These are works of fiction, not formal histories. If you can have, umpteen million dukes in the Regency period written about in the world when there were actually only 28 of them, and during that period, you can have people of color too. You know what I'm saying? All right. Second, we need this. We need new stories retold in new ways. So let me explain with an example of why we need to change the stories. Okay, so first I want to tell you about my friend. I was talking to my friend Amanda about this service today, and she told me a story. Now, you guys met Amanda actually back in January. Reverend Amanda Aikman is a Unitarian minister, and she said, about 30, 40 years ago, she was getting ready. She was on a flight to go someplace. So this is back way before 9/11, if some of you might remember, when there was only a curtain between the cockpit and the cabin, right? I don't know if any of you all remember that. It was very, very simple back then. And she said, I have been an activist my whole life. I looked down the aisle and I saw into the cabin and cockpit, and there was a black man as a pilot and a white woman as the co-pilot. And she said, my first reaction was fear. Oh my God, were they competent to fly the plane? She realized she'd never seen a woman or a black pilot before. This is a woman who worked her whole life for civil rights. And then, of course, her rational brain kicks in a few seconds later. And she realized that her fear came from this racist and misogynistic bias that she herself has in her own self, that she had only known white men as pilots, had only ever seen them depicted that way in movies and television and commercials. So her brain assumed that only white men were capable of being pilots. And of course, that's ridiculous. But that's why representation matters. Because here's the thing, our subconscious minds, they're just not that discerning, right? If it doesn't see diversity, then it doesn't normalize it. It sees it as an aberration, as something to be feared. We have to make these unconscious biases conscious, like it happened to her, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had that bias. But even better, we need to make our unconscious work for us by normalizing inclusivity such that exclusivity feels wrong, feels off. Like Vanessa Riley, I love the 1995 BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, but now I watch it and I go, ooh, yeah, this is really white, and it feels off, like there's something missing. We have to be active agents in this training of our brains. For example, actively seeking images, movies, and television shows that depict people of color, especially men, in healthy and positive ways. And Hollywood can really help with this by normalizing inclusivity in TV, commercials, and movies. And it's happening, which is awesome. And this is also why Obama's election meant so much to African Americans and progressives, and why Kamala Harris's inauguration means so much to women of all colors around the world. When we can see ourselves in these roles, we see our own possibilities. I was really struck by a Twitter response to the inauguration, to the latest inauguration. It was by this gentleman named Qasim Rashid, a Muslim. And he put it this way after Kamala's inauguration. He said, back in January 2017, that was when Trump was inaugurated, my then 8-year-old asked if the Muslim ban meant we had to leave. But yesterday, on January 20th, my now 12-year-old asked if I thought his 5-year-old sister could also one day be vice president or president. Justice matters. Representation matters. Representation in media is, to my mind, not just about personal choice. It's a duty, a responsibility, and obligation for society that we all have in the society to make sure our world is accurately represented in positive ways. The ability to imagine yourself, to see a part of you in these leadership roles is crucial to everyone living up to the potential inside of them. Let me illustrate this also with two stories, a little contrasting story. The first is that of my friend Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is a Lutheran minister in the Midwest. She and I went to seminary together, and she and I have kept in touch over the years. I remember once in seminary, I asked her about her call to ministry. It's a pretty common question that we ask each other. So what's your call to ministry? And she said, I got the call when I was 12 years old. Now, this sort of surprised me because she was basically in her early 50s when she and I met in seminary. And she continued, she said, well, when they did an altar call at my church for those interested in ministry, I stepped forward because I realized I had this call to want to do this. But I felt these hands pulling me back, and I was told, whispered in my ear, that's only for boys. She said, it took me 40 years to realize that I too could be a minister. Now contrast that with when, about 8 or 9 years ago, when I was an intern in our Nashville church, almost 10 years ago, actually, I'm walking to the church. I said hello to Samantha and her mother, who were walking in the same direction. And Samantha, I think, was about 5 or 6 years old, I guess. And I said, oh, hey, Samantha, how are you? And she kind of smiled at me, kind of shyly. And her mother said, well, you know, she plays minister. I said, what? What do you mean she plays minister? Oh, yeah, she lights a chalice, and then she gives a speech about, you know, how to be a better person. It's one of her favorite games to do. You know, I never thought of myself as a role model before, but I represent a possibility to this child. A door had opened up for her. She had never been told that's only for boys. I thought about my friend Elizabeth and how different her and Samantha's stories were. Elizabeth, it never occurred to her because the adults, told her that she was wrong, that they were wrong. Representation really matters. And inclusion is hard work, partly because it's challenging to work consciously toward diversity without slipping into what's known as tokenism, right? Tokenism is diversity without inclusion. It's a perfunctory effort to meet numerical diversity goals or create the appearance of diversity without making effective changes. Now, tokenism has long been in Hollywood's bag of tricks, right? You might have the token person of color in a gang of mostly white people, or you have the gay friend to the heterosexual who's trying to, love triangle or something like that. And just don't even get me going on stereotypes. But what does inclusivity look like versus tokenism? Well, let's look at Bridgerton, because Shonda Rhimes, the creator, could have simply put in people of color in the background, but made everything else very white. But she doesn't. She deliberately blends and includes Black culture intermixed with this 19th century Regency period. As Riley pointed out, there's the dap, there's a bejeweled pick comb, and indeed most of the costumes and hairstyles are drawn from many different cultures, though they retain a 19th century form. Even the music is consciously mixed of classical and jazz and blues and pop music. She took a lot of pop music and put it to classical instruments. This is a celebration of the diversity, not just a nod to it. There is no sense that they are trying to make some quota or making people whitewashed, as it were. It is beautifully and consciously done in a way that makes it look unconscious. It looks normal, it looks right. But tokenism can show up in our lives too. I mean, think of that person who tries to prove that they aren't racist by pointing to their one Black friend, or having one gay friend makes you a supporter of LGBTQ community. Those are all forms of tokenism. It's really about putting your money where your mouth is, in a sense. Inclusion is the normalization of diversity. It isn't being colorblind, but rather celebrating all the colors. It is doing the hard work of figuring out, what does it mean to be inclusive? And how do I make room for everyone? You know, we humans, we build our lives around stories. They tell us who we are and how we came to be. They give us the possibilities and can hold us back from reaching those possibilities depending on the stories told and how they are told. In our modern culture, stories are told on television and movies and commercials and plays and music videos and in music. These stories either uplift us or hold us back, depending on what we see and hear. Learning to be inclusive, not tokenizing, sometimes has to be a conscious act in order to make it normalized. Let me give you an example of this. As a worship leader, I've been learning how to do this in my ministry, particularly in worship. You know, after all, what most people see every week, right, is a white, hetero, cisgender, middle-class woman. If I just relied on my experience and my knowledge, you'd get a pretty narrow view of the world. My job is to bring in other perspectives as much as I can. And Beth does too. Beth is fabulous. She's our music director, and she's fabulous at helping us find great music from diverse artists. I work on getting readings and words together by people of diverse backgrounds. Now, because February is Black History Month, we focus this month on a lot of African American composers and writers. Today, we're starting out with a song written, we started out actually with a song written by a hetero cis white male, Jason Shelton, but he's also a multicultural activist. Then we shifted to a musical affirmation that was by a Black choir singing the national African American national anthem called Lift Every Voice. Our reading was written by a Black woman. The song following was written by two white cis women from the Appalachian region and sung by a diverse group of Unitarians. The returning song, as you will see, is an African-American spiritual sung by a diverse group, and the offertory is written by India Ari, a Black American singer and songwriter, and sung by a middle-aged white hetero woman. And finally, the prayer is written by a Black Unitarian minister. I tell you, wonderful diversity. Man, now, did we choose these pieces because they were the best options for the service? We absolutely did. Could we have chosen all white performers who were also really, really good? Absolutely. Could we have chosen all people of color as performers and writers that were the best? Absolutely. This world is full of amazing work by lots of amazing, diverse people. It isn't a matter of finding some performer writer that is better than another, but rather consciously choosing to be inclusive of all performers and writers, to bring in different voices, to lift up different lives, to normalize this diversity, to create inclusivity. This is different from tokenism that wants only the appearance of inclusion. Now, you may not be aware, but we do this every single Sunday. It's not just today. Many of you may not even notice that diversity of voices being presented. But if you don't, believe me, others do notice. And they're able to then see themselves here. It's a way of helping people feel included. When we go down that road of assuming tokenism whenever we see diversity, it's kind of both insulting and condescending. And while I'm sure it does happen, and honestly, I've been guilty of it in my early ministry, I've been learning so much over the last few years about conscious inclusivity. It's about making sure that we find the right people, performers and writers among all the peoples available to us and allowing their gifts to inform us, to change us, to open the world to new voices. And this is why the inaugurations of Obama and of Harris were and are so vital for so many people. For the first time, we can imagine something new. And they were not chosen because of the color of their skin. They were chosen because they were the best people for the job. And yes, President Biden looked primarily at people of color as his running mate because he had a plethora of amazing people to choose from. So why not? He knew that representation matters, but more importantly, he knew that he needed different life experience, different viewpoints from his own as an older white hetero cis male. He has deliberately chosen people who are not only competent for his cabinet, but who represent various peoples in this country and also have different ways of thinking, experiences, different lives than him. And he values those. That's inclusivity, not tokenism. Now, I'm of a certain generation that grew up without much recognition of diversity. I think Sesame Street was the only one that I remember there being any kind of diversity. My history, my television, my culture was pretty segregated, right? I grew up in cultures with Friends and the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island. I'm blessed to have had some eye-opening experiences, but I've had to work at it. I've had to work on my subconscious, and I still continue to work on it, to retrain it to see the world as it really is, full of beautiful diversity. But you know what makes me so happy? It's the next generation. They're growing up seeing the world differently. They're being told different stories, like Samantha, like the girls watching Kamala Harris get inaugurated. There is a generation coming up that sees their potential all around them. And it's only going to get better because we're changing this culture. We're telling new stories. We're consciously choosing to be inclusive, to think about it in make new choices. That's how we build a new future. So let's walk together into that future. Don't you get weary. We're getting closer to that promised land.
Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, shout together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land.
Oh, work together, children, don't you get weary. Work together, children, don't you get weary. Work together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land.
Oh, sing together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land.
Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. And speaking of inclusivity of all lives, this month we are supporting Wetlands Wildlife Care Center. Their mission is to educate the public about men's impact on the environment and mitigate that impact through care and rehabilitation of the native wildlife. There are multiple ways in which you can support the church and this organization. You can mail a check, you can go through our website, use an app called Give Plus, or by texting. The choice is yours. All the information is on our website should you need it. And as always, thank you for your generosity.
Some believe it's right to say Jesus when you pray. Some believe Mohammed, Allah, Buddha all the way. Instead of a god or a pantheon of gods up in the sky, I'll honor your choices and you can honor mine. Whether you are red, black, yellow, brown, or white, man with a husband or a woman with a wife, We can debate till the end of time who's wrong or who is right, or I can honor your choices and you can honor mine. We all want the same things from life. We want peace, love, and prosperity. Can we give up the need to be right? Give the world the present, give the gift of your acceptance. Give the world the present, give the gift of your acceptance. Some say that God's a he, and some say he's a her. Is God right here in our hearts, or out in the universe? Gandhi was a Hindu, Martin Luther King a Christian. Regardless of religion, they knew love was the mission. They call you Israeli and they call me American. I look at you, I don't see a country, I just see my friend. I pray that we're in each other's lives for a long time, because I honor your choices and you honor mine. We all want the same things from life. We want peace, love, and prosperity. Can we give up the need to be right? Give the world the present, give the gift of your acceptance. Give the world the present, give the gift of your acceptance.
Please join in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share.
We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Oh, let's take some deep breaths. It's good to be back. I kind of missed this ritual that we do every week last week, since we were all together in the multi-church worship service. Well, if you're new, let me explain that this is a weekly ritual where we honor important events in our lives, and you're invited, whether you're a member, a friend, or a visitor, to participate in this ritual. So perhaps you came here holding something close to your heart, moments from the last days, weeks, or hours that may have struck you at your core. If you'd like to honor that profound joy or sorrow, you're invited to do so. You can do this by lighting a candle at home. I have a wonderful little candle right here. It's a wonderful way to honor what you hold in your heart. If you'd like to share your joy or sorrow with the congregation, we invite you to write that in the chat. So let's take a few moments in contemplation, and then I'll begin reading the joys and sorrows out loud. And please forgive me if I miss a joy or a sorrow. You can help me not to miss any by waiting to type comments to an expressed joy or sorrow until we're finished. Thank you. You may hear my dog barking in the background. That's my foster dog that I'm doing now, which is a joy for me in taking care of this little girl who was hit by a car. But I want to also say that Rachel Leiden is celebrating that today is her parents' 40th wedding anniversary. Congratulations to your parents, Rachel. Ralph Haller expressed a joy, he sent me this to me, that he expressed a joy that last week on the 17th birthday of his grandson, Rowan, who is currently a filmmaker and also will be a future engineer. So he is joyful about that. And Dinny and Bob also expressed earlier that they're celebrating 28 years of wedding bliss together. Congratulations, Dinny and Bob. Dinny pointed out, she said, we were living in sin long before we got married, though. So that's what she tells me. Bless her heart. So, and Don Cherry says he's really proud of his Congressman Jamie Raskin as he led the House impeachment. Maureen McConaughey expresses some joy that her husband and she got their first vaccine shots. I'm hearing more and more people getting them. That makes absolutely wonderful. So Sarah said that she and her husband Rob also got their first shots of the vaccine. And what a relief that is, right? That feeling of like, okay, feeling of safety. Let's see here. And Tracy Doshbach wants to let people know about her husband who's been using cannabis for anxiety for about 5 years. He went through a really difficult diagnosis called CHS, cannabinoid heramesis syndrome. It's been a difficult few weeks, but he's on the mend. He went through a really tough time physically with this. It does not affect all people that use cannabis, but it's something to be aware of out there. So you might want to check that out. She's posted a link in the chat. It's called, again, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, CHS. And Jordan, he has a candle of fear he's putting out there. He said for his unemployment. He says, I'm having a hard time contacting the unemployment office and I couldn't certify last week. So he's worried. Yeah, Mary is also excited. She got her first vaccine this week and feels great relief. Can I tell you how happy I am when I keep hearing of people getting their vaccine? I didn't realize how much anxiety I carried around of fear for you all. So I'm really excited about it too. So tell me when you get your vaccines because it makes me happy. So, all right. And as Sarah points out, it's one more step to seeing her grandchildren. Yes, it is. All right. Let us hold all these joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we're not alone. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer by the Reverend Hope Johnson. She says this: we are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one. Amen.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. This we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently. And yet, when we gather together, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you are a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to write in the chat your name and where you're from so we can welcome you. If you would like to know more about our church, please contact us at hello@ocuuc.org and we will help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuuc.org. If you would like to find more information on how to join the programs for the children and youth, please contact Reverend Judy at revjudy ocuuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we will help you get connected. After the benediction, we will have a short period where everyone can wave and say hello. Then those that remain will be put into Zoom breakout groups for 20 minutes. We invite you to check in and get to know the people in your group and welcome any visitors.
So, of course, a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. The first is actually, so I'm noticing even more people are saying they even got their second shot for vaccines already, which is very, very happy day. But if you're out there and you're going, wait, I haven't been able to get my vaccine and I'm in group B, 1B, which is part of the people doing it. I really want to get one, but I'm struggling with this. There are lots of different locations and places to do this. And if you need any help with registering or getting to a place to get your vaccine, please let me or the Pastoral Care Associates know, and we will get you hooked up and try to get you in line with all the different places that can help you out with this. So keep trying, all right? So the other thing, of course, I want to mention that next Sunday, we're having our big congregational meeting. So this is a congregational meeting. It's a formal meeting where we are going to practice our democracy and vote on building the new sanctuary. This is going to require a vote of our members. Now, members and friends, visitors, everybody's invited, but only members get to vote. So please come out for that. It's going to be kind of an exciting day. So we'll see you then. So let us join Beth virtually in singing our benediction.